Hi guys, my name is Alana and I run a creative writing blog called AJ's Creative Corner. And what I like to do on there is talk about all types of different creative writing, but especially poetry and short fiction stories. So if you're watching this video, you're either watching it on my blog or you're watching it on my Instagram page. And my Instagram page is called AJ's Creative Writing. And what I like to do on there is like post new blog posts. I like to post advice for writers and different tips, and I like to engage with you guys directly. So the other week, I posted an Instagram story asking all writers what's one thing you guys need help with. And someone responded, and they're a poet, and they want to know how to condense their poetry to as little as possible because they write very long form poetry. And I got super excited because that's been my longest struggle with poetry. I started writing poetry just for fun in English class in the 6th grade, and I'm now 23, and I didn't really find a solution to this problem until I was in college, so about like 1920. And so it's my favorite question that I've ever been asked because it's my longest struggle. So I used to think for some reason if I wrote pages and pages of poetry really quickly, that meant that I was good. And I don't know why I thought that. And I had a professor in college who challenged me. He was like, okay, I've read your poem, and I want to know that if I told you to take out as much as possible, what would this poem look like afterwards? And he was like, take out filler word, you take out whole lines. There were whole stanzas that I took out. And when I came back, he was like, I want you to justify why you kept everything you kept. It was super frustrating, but I was so surprised that I was left with a completely different poem than what I started with. And in this particular case, I was just way over explaining the longer poem. I wasn't leaving things to the reader's imagination. When I shortened it, it was more impactful because it was powerful. You only have so many words, and the symbolism and the flow was a lot better. So I'm not saying never write longer form poetry. I think a lot of it is really, really great. Just can you justify why you kept everything you kept? So today, because I'm a visual learner, I found one of my favorite poems that I've ever posted on this blog, and this is exactly how I wrote it. So I want to use this to kind of walk you through what my editing process was. And you don't have to look at the particular words. I'm just going to kind of explain the scribbles, but if you want to look at the particular words, I'll put this picture up close on my blog and my Instagram so you guys can get a better feel for it. Okay, so step 1. I'm just going to walk you through what this poem looked like for me because it's a pretty good example of what most of my poetry looks like. On this particular day, I did not feel like writing, so I employed what I call a tactic that I like called forced writing, which I talked about it on here before in a video. And that's when you don't feel like writing, or you feel like writing but everything you're writing feels bad. But so you sit down and you make a time commitment to yourself. Okay, I'm gonna write for 10 minutes today, no distractions, I'm not getting up from this desk till I'm done, and I'm just gonna write whatever pops into my head. So it literally, it's on this side, it literally gets to here before I start really enjoying what I'm writing. But I kept writing because I could literally feel it. I was like, I'm on the cusp of something. I'm not there yet, but I know if I keep writing, I'll get there, and I did. So, and forced writing, it might not happen to you that day, it might not happen to you the next day, but it'll happen to you the next day. You just gotta keep going. And so that's what I did. I just write and I write and I write and I write. I don't do any edits until I am done writing. And so once I had 2 pages, I was like, all right, now the editing process can begin. So I knew in my head I just wasn't going to use this because that was just forced writing. So that's out the window. So now it's mostly just the back of this page. I start going, what can we take out? What's got to go? Whether it doesn't fit in with the theme or it's too long or words pop out, what can we just X out off the bat? And if you have a line that you're like, this is really good, it's just not for this poem, I go on my WordPress post and I make a draft with just that line and I come back to it, especially on days where I'm not feeling inspired because I'm just like, oh, I remember I had this thought and now I get to spend time and develop it fully. But if it's like not in line with your theme, it's gotta go for this one. So I'll exit out and then I start getting more nitpicky into individual words. What are we taking out? This was a contraction. I thought the contraction made it way too informal when I wanted a formal poem this time, so that's why that had to go. Then my next thing is called reordering. I've always written out of order. I don't know why. I even do it on like academic essays. I'll write an amazing introduction paragraph for like the third body paragraph. So you can either do arrows to maybe play with this line would be better at the beginning, or this line would be better here. Or if you don't write like double-sided, you could literally cut it out and then just have it all spread out in a table and rearrange it. And that especially helps for visual learners. I would strongly recommend doing that if you have the time. So then I start here in the margins. You can see that's written this way. I'll see a line like this and be like, that's a great line, but it can be reworded. There's even one word that's kind of off theme with the rest of the poem. It's going to stand out because when you have a poem that's like 6 or 8 lines, that's just 6 or 8 lines. It's not like a book where if you write like a sentence that's kind of wonky, that's kind of weird, like the rest will make up for it. But when you only have 6 lines of your work standing out, you want everything to be on theme and to be impactful. Like, think, what message am I trying to deliver to the audience, and how can I be as concise, as impactful, and consistent as possible? So I would do that there, and I do this like, I'm like, okay, what can I take out? And then I'll read it again. And then I'm like, what can I reorder? And then I'll read it again. And then I'll think, what can I rephrase? And then I'll read it again. And then I start getting more like nitpicky about specific grammar, punctuation. Why is that there? If I were going to read this poem out loud, would the punctuation, am I using like commas and periods where I'd actually pause if I read this poem out loud? That's super important, and I hate reading poetry out loud, but you gotta do it because it's also gonna help you with rhythm, especially if you're just starting with poetry and you struggle. The easiest way, people are gonna teach you so many tips and tricks, and there's different ways, and here's what Shakespeare did. Just read it out loud. Ignore all of that, because I know you might not even feel this way, but you have some sort of natural rhythm in your body. So when you read it out loud and you hear it in your voice and it's how you wrote it, you're going to be able to figure it out. It sucks, but you have to do it. And so I'll just go back and forth again and again. And my last step, which sometimes I skip depending on how I feel, is I give it to someone to proofread. So after I give it to that person to proofread, you don't necessarily always have to take the commentary, because maybe you're giving it to someone who doesn't really understand poetry and you appreciate the insight, but whatever they're saying, you don't want to get rid of it or you don't want to correct it, so you don't have to. But it helps to give it to someone. I especially need help for grammar, so it helps to give it to someone to just have a second set of eyes if you're comfortable with that. And then what I do is I put it away for, if it's something like this one I put it away for 24 hours. I put it away for a day and I come back to it the next day, and then I do this all over again. And usually once I've had some space from it and I come back to it, I'm like, I know exactly what I want to change. I know exactly what I want to do. So I strongly recommend. I know it's hard because once I write something and I edit it, I'm like, I want to get out as soon as possible. But it always looks better when I take at least like 10 minutes, like go leave your workspace, walk around, do something else, come back, because you'll have an entirely new perspective. Alright, so thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I really hope that helps.